Imagine this. The year is 1962, and the world is staring down the barrel of nuclear annihilation. Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, are locked in a deadly standoff, each ready to press the button that could end humanity in an instant. Cities are on edge, families hide in fallout shelters, and every news bulletin could be the last. But behind the scenes, while the world holds its breath, there's a secret. A spy inside the Soviet Union is risking everything, not for his country, not for fame or money, but to save all of us. This is the story of the man who changed the course of history with nothing but a cigarette case and a mountain of courage. A man who walked a razor's edge between life and death, betrayal and heroism. You might never have heard his name before, but chances are you owe him your life. Who was Oleg Penkovsky? Oleg Vladimirovich Penkovsky wasn't your typical Soviet officer. Born in 1919 into a family loyal to the Red Army, he was raised believing in the promise of Soviet power. He trained at the elite Frunze Military Academy and climbed the ranks into the GRU, the USSR's shadowy military intelligence. But Penkovsky's mind was different. Sharp, multilingual, ambitious, and deeply disillusioned. He'd seen the cracks beneath the Iron Curtain, the reckless power plays, the crushing bureaucracy, the cult of personality that turned leaders into untouchable gods. Penkovsky feared the worst, that the Soviet system's arrogance would ignite a war the world couldn't survive. In 1960, while on a trade mission to London, he did the unthinkable. Passing a note to two unsuspecting British businessmen, he revealed his true allegiance. "I'm a Soviet officer. I want to help you." That moment set off a chain reaction. MI6 moved swiftly, and soon the CIA was in the loop. What followed would become one of the most daring and consequential espionage operations in history. Secrets in a cigarette case. From 1960 to 1962, Penkovsky became the West's inside man, known only as Hero. He met secretly with his handlers, often abroad, smuggling secrets in the smallest, most unlikely places: cigarette cases, books, even matchboxes. He memorized military manuals, photographed classified documents, and delivered detailed reports on Soviet missile systems and command centers. In total, Penkovsky handed over more than 5,000 top-secret documents. This wasn't just spy thriller stuff. He revealed blueprints of missile designs, layouts of secret installations, and, most critically, proof that the Soviet nuclear arsenal was nowhere near as powerful as they claimed. At a time when the USSR boasted of military parity with the US, Penkovsky exposed the truth. They were bluffing. Their missiles were slow and outdated, their command systems a tangled mess. This intelligence was a game-changer. It shifted the West's strategy from blind fear to calculated confidence. Leaders suddenly had the real picture, and that saved lives. The Cuban Missile Crisis, Penkovsky's moment. Then came October 1962. A U-2 spy plane flying high over Cuba snapped photos of Soviet missiles being built just 90 miles from Florida's shores. The world froze. But the pictures raised more questions than answers. Were those missiles ready to fire? How long before they could launch a strike? This is where Penkovsky's secrets became crucial. Thanks to his earlier intel, the US knew exactly what missile models were on the island, how quickly they could be armed, and the Soviet protocols for launching a nuclear attack. Without that, President Kennedy might have ordered a preemptive strike and triggered a global catastrophe. Instead, the US imposed a naval blockade, demanding the missiles be removed. Behind closed doors, tensions skyrocketed. Diplomats scrambled to negotiate while military leaders pushed for war. On October 27th, Black Saturday, a US spy plane was shot down over Cuba. The pressure to retaliate was overwhelming. One wrong decision, one impulsive move, and millions could die. But Penkovsky's information gave Kennedy the edge, an inside view of Khrushchev's mindset. He knew the Soviet leader wanted leverage, not war. That knowledge bought precious time. On October 28th, the Soviets agreed to remove the missiles. The world exhaled. Magnifying glass tilted left Penkovsky's downfall. But while he was saving the world, Penkovsky's own life was unraveling. Soviet counterintelligence noticed anomalies, missing documents, suspicious photos, agents acting too informed. The net was closing. In September 1962, the KGB arrested Penkovsky. The news stunned Western handlers, just as the Cuban Missile Crisis was erupting. For weeks, no one knew where he was. Inside brutal prison cells, under relentless interrogation, Penkovsky confessed. His trial was a show trial, painted by Soviet media as a traitor who sold his country to the West. In 1963, he was sentenced to death. Some say he was executed by firing squad. Others whispered darker fates, burned alive in a crematorium to warn others. The truth remains a mystery. But one thing is certain, Penkovsky's mission was done. Oleg Penkovsky didn't live to see the world he helped save. He never got to read the history books, never walked through museums that quietly reference his name, never stood on peaceful city streets decades later knowing that his sacrifice mattered. But the shockwaves of his betrayal, the right kind of betrayal, rippled through time. His actions didn't just shape the Cold War. They defined its tone. They introduced a terrifying idea into the minds of world leaders. What if someone inside is working for the other side? Not for power, but for peace. It made dictators look over their shoulders. It made democracies ask harder questions. Penkovsky's courage sent a message louder than any bomb could have. The truth is more powerful than fear. The documents Penkovsky provided didn't gather dust in some vault. They became the blueprint for future strategy. His intel informed American missile defense systems, reshaped NATO's approach to the Eastern Bloc, and helped avert at least 3 other close calls in the decades that followed. The CIA and MI6 used his case to rewrite how they handled defectors. Spycraft became more sophisticated, more human, more personal. Agents were trained not just in gadgets and tradecraft, but in empathy, psychology, and ideology. Because Penkovsky proved that a man doesn't need a suitcase full of cash to switch sides. Sometimes, he just needs a reason. For years, Penkovsky's story was buried under layers of secrecy, bureaucracy, and fear. The Soviets erased him from public memory. Western agencies refused to admit how much they owed him. He vanished into the classified corners of Cold War history, a hero hidden behind redacted lines. Even today, ask the average person about the Cuban Missile Crisis and they'll mention Kennedy, Khrushchev, maybe Castro. But Oleg Penkovsky? Just a ghost in the background. He didn't do it for statues. He didn't do it for headlines. He did it because he believed someone had to tell the truth. The scariest part? We'll never know how close we really came. All we know is that missiles were being built. Bombers were on standby. Fingers hovered over launch buttons. And somewhere in the chaos, one man whispered truth into the right ears. Maybe your parents met because of that. Maybe you were born because someone didn't press that button. Maybe this entire world, the art, the music, the laughter, the lives we've built, exists because one man chose to betray evil. So yes, Oleg Penkovsky was a spy. Yes, he was a traitor to tyranny. But more than that, he was a mirror, a reminder of what one life can do when guided by conscience over country, by humanity over hate. Today, CIA instructors still mention Penkovsky's case in training, not just as an intelligence asset, but as a moral blueprint. Not all spies were tuxedos. Some were guilt, fear, purpose, and in the Cold War's deadliest moment, one man didn't run. He stood up and lit a match in the dark, and the world saw just enough light to find its way back. So, what do you call a man who betrays his country to save the entire planet? To some, Oleg Penkovsky was a traitor. To millions who never even knew his name, he was a guardian against apocalypse. He wasn't a glamorous spy. No gadgets, no flashy suits, just courage, conviction, and a deep fear of what might happen if he stayed silent. Oleg Penkovsky saved the world, not with weapons, but with information. And as you watch this, remember, you might be here today because of him. Your family, your life, every peaceful moment after the crisis might never have existed without the spy who said, "No more." This was the story of the spy who saved the world. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe for more incredible true stories, and drop your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, history isn't just written by the victors. Sometimes it's saved by the spies.